People do not die of exhaustion but of compromise with themselves. David Goggins. Suppose you woke up one morning with no one to admire you, no tools to record your efforts, no calendar reminders, no social pressures. Will you still keep your promise to yourself? Maybe. The question may seem moral, but it is really a biological question. The human body can survive with low oxygen levels, can adapt to thirst, hunger, and cold. But very few people have ever tested whether their souls can bear not living to the end. Never Finished is not a book for those looking for kindness. It offers no comfort, makes no attempt to inspire confidence, and is completely inhospitable to the spirit of procrastination. On the contrary, it takes you on a journey where every step forward does not come from motivation but from denial, from lying to yourself one more time. I can't promise you'll like this book, but maybe at some point it will make you speechless. And it is that moment of silence before the truth, that is the real beginning. We encourage listeners to buy and read the book to fully experience its content. Because only when you read the whole book will you understand the nature of the problem you are listening to me talk about. Now let's get started. Summary of this book. I sat in the middle of a crowded auditorium at the Sen City Convention Center. The spotlight above shone on me as if scrutinizing me. On the left is my mother, on the right is my uncle. The man who helped my mother and I escape from hell in the past. They smiled proudly, but I could feel nothing but emptiness. On the podium, I was about to receive one of the highest awards given to American veterans, the Medal of Honor for patriotism and service to the community. Last year's recipient was Senator John Mikan, a survivor of 5.5 years in a Vietnamese prisoner of war camp. I used to consider him an ideal model of courage and bravery. Yet now my name David Goggins is being put in the same line as his and I feel like I don't deserve it. Don't get me wrong, I don't deny what I did. I fought, I gave, I tried my best, but deep in my mind, one question kept ringing out. Why am I here? Because if we look back at my starting point, a black kid with scars on his thighs who used to weigh nearly 140 kilograms and worked as a night shift killer with a salary of $1,000 a month, none of us thought that I would be able to stand here, including myself. I don't sit there beating myself up. I'm searching, I'm rummaging through my memory to find what moment, what decision, what blow lit the fire that took me from rock bottom to the top. But I kept looking but could not find it. Even when I heard my name called, I still couldn't stand up. My mother had to remind me. I stepped onto the stage like a person who had just emerged from a long dream, walking between the present and memories filled with blood and tears. They read my resume, the funds I raised, the goals I accomplished, the challenges I overcame. When the medal was placed around the neck, the whole audience stood up and applauded. But I don't feel proud, I feel shocked. That was the first moment I realized. It turns out I've really changed. As I held the microphone, I looked down at the faces looking at me, my comrades in arms, former comrades, soldiers who shed sweat and blood for the country. I should have said something spirited. But instead, I opened with a name. My grandfather's name is Sergeant Jack. If he were alive, he would be the happiest person to see me standing here today. I choked up trying to continue and I wanted to thank my mother. I looked at my mom and when my eyes met hers, I collapsed. I closed my eyes, tears welling up like a movie being rewinded. A series of scenes came to mind. The last scene I saw my father. The scene of me leaving home on the road across the northeastern United States to meet the demon has haunted me all my life. That year I was 24 years old, working as a cockroach killer at night, living hand to mouth. I dropped out of paratrooper training because I was afraid of water. I am haunted by the feeling of failure. I am fat, lazy, messy, depressed. I felt like I was falling apart, and I knew if I didn't change I would die a loser or worse. Become a copy of his father, a brute, drug addict, contemptuous of people. To change, I think I need to face the roots. I need to look the demon in my life squarely in the eye. I drove back to Buffalo, which used to be my home, which used to be hell. It was the first time I saw him in 12 years. The old house remains the same as if time froze the chairs, the floor, the musty smell. It all reminded me of the nights my mother and I spent sleeping rough on the tattered sofa in the skating rink office my father owned. I was 6 years old then, working all night. Go to school in the morning, sleep at noon, and scrape gum on the floor at night. When I saw him again, I hoped I could forgive him. I want to believe I'm wrong. But no, he was still him, still smiling faintly, still drunk, still saying cruel things about my mother. Still a toxic person, someone who never apologizes for what he did. And at that moment, I suddenly understood, I had given him too much power. I let my past control my present. On the way back, I stared at the steering wheel and asked myself, how long will I continue to blame others? How long will it be before I stand up and take responsibility for my life? That's when I realized one thing, no one is coming to save me. I have to save myself. I have to face myself, no embellishment, no comfort, no excuses. Only the truth, and that truth woke me up. That trip, the confrontation with the devil, was the beginning of the transformation. I started studying again, restudying for the exam, dieting, exercising for 6 hours a day, running until I vomited. I lost nearly 50 kilograms in 3 months, I returned to the army, entered the hell of training, and I survived. But the most important thing I gained was not muscles or achievements but a kind of faith. Not the vague, empty faith like believe in yourself, but the kind of faith that comes from every drop of sweat, every time I wanted to give up but never give up. A kind of faith born of asceticism, the kind of faith no one gives you. You have to find it in your own pain. And since then, I've lived for an ideal. Seeing every day as a battle with myself. I pushed myself further, higher, deeper. Not to prove anything, but to exploit my seemingly non-existent little potential. Because I knew if I, a short, illiterate, fat black kid who had been beaten until he was bleeding, could do it, then anyone could. I was never the chosen one. No one ever patted me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, you have potential." No teachers, no coaches. No commander ever bet on me. On the contrary, most thought I was a waste of space, a burden, a joke. And so, I choose to live as someone no one notices, but I don't let myself wither away in silence. I use that invisibility as a camouflage to quietly hone myself. When people sleep, I exercise, when they chat, I read. While they surf the net, I write my diary bit by bit. I sharpen my will like a knife, no color, no need for praise, just blood and steel. Most people just live within their comfort zone, their familiar zone, their pain-free zone. They define themselves by what is comfortable. But I am the opposite. I seek pain, I dig into fear. I stared into the dark corners that other villagers avoided because I understood. In pain is truth, in truth is strength. I have seen too many people give up after just scratching the surface of the challenge. They say, "I can't do it." But they never really tried their best. They only try until it's difficult. As for me, I continued even when my body screamed at me to stop. I learned to ignore that voice. Because I know that voice is the biggest barrier. People ask me how to be motivated like you. And I said, I don't have motivation. I have discipline. Motivation is something that comes and goes like the wind. Discipline is the stick you hit yourself on the head with every morning. Regardless of how you feel, discipline is something you create in silence when no one is watching, no one knows, no one appreciates. One time I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning to run in the freezing cold in Indiana. I opened the door and it was snowing heavily, the cold hit my face like a punch. I closed the door, was about to climb into bed, and then I stopped. I remembered one thing: I vowed never to go back to the old me. The lazy one, the one who ran away, the one who made excuses. So I opened the door again. I walked out, I ran. Every step felt like I was cutting through ice, every breath felt like I was being drained of energy. But I didn't stop because I knew if I stopped today, I would stop for the rest of my life. And then when I got home, I didn't see the glory, I didn't post anything online. I just looked in the mirror and said, "You did it. Keep your word." And that very moment, a moment that no one sees, no one praises, is the greatest reward. People think I like asceticism, not that I don't like pain. I don't like running hundreds of kilometers, I don't like strict diets, living alone, iron discipline. But I choose to do it because I want to create myself, not wait for the world to define who I am. I learned that potential is something no one gives you. It's not in your genes, in your intelligence, in your luck. It's in your choices. And you have to choose it every day. No one does it for you. If you are invisible, if no one believes you can do anything great, then you are me and like me. You can choose to live differently, you can choose to fight, not to win anyone but to no longer be a copy of yourself yesterday. I'm not perfect. I've been messy, weak, and given up. I still have darkness in my heart. But I've learned to turn that darkness into fuel. I don't run away from it anymore. I make it something that pushes me forward. So if you're waiting for someone to give you faith, stop, create it yourself. Be living proof that all limits can be broken if you are brave enough to suffer, stubborn enough to not stop, and clear-headed enough to see the path you choose. You don't have to be the best, the strongest, the smartest. You just have to be the one who never dies inside, because no one can defeat the one who refuses to give up. On Christmas Eve, most of the world was immersed in lights, laughter, glasses of wine, and shiny fruit boxes. And I was sitting in a rotting truck, alone and cold, my knees bleeding, my hands blistered, trying to keep my balance in a maddening silence. This wasn't a dream or a Hollywood movie about a crazy hero. This was reality, and it hurt every nerve. I was running for one of the Euro running challenges, the hardest race on the planet. I needed 100 ml. That year, I had no contract, no sponsor, no support team. I had no one cheering me on. No flares, no banners, just me and my sick will to see how far my body could be pushed before it completely collapsed. Christmas to me was not a festival, it was a reminder. A reminder that I had nothing. A reminder that everyone was having fun, while I was still fighting every second to not return to being anonymous. And I knew that no matter how many flashing lights there were out there, the only light I needed came from within when I was a child. I used to wish for a gift, a real meal, a home without screaming, a day without being beaten. Now I wished for something else, to see myself broken, to know that I could still be reborn. Every step on that cold night was a slice of flesh. I had lost a toenail several stages ago. My thigh muscles twitched. Like being electrocuted, urine smelling metallic. Signs of kidney failure. But I didn't stop. Not because I was Superman, but because I had been nothing. And I knew that only through pain could humans reinvent themselves. In my life, I had had many Christmases that no one remembered. When I was 10, I wandered around a damp boarding house, trying to pick up coins from the cracks in the seats. When I was 15, I heard my mother crying because I didn't have enough money for milk. Christmas was always a final exam, a kind of baptism in the cold. And so, I didn't celebrate it with alcohol. I celebrated it with sweat, with blood, with will. That night, after running nearly 80 miles, my body started to react, my chest felt tight, my breath hissed like an old exhaust pipe, but I kept going. I learned a trick from Los, separating myself from my body. When my body wanted to stop, I let my mind leave my body like a soldier clinging to a call far away. I became the observer of my own pain. I didn't run like David Goggins. I ran like a soul with nothing left to lose. On that dark road, I didn't just fight against my biological limits, I fought against the voice in my head, the voice that kept whispering. "You've done enough, you deserve a break." But I knew as soon as I listened to it, I would return to that fat loser from years ago, and I never wanted to go back. Christmas to me was a reminder, no one is coming to save you. There is no Santa Claus, no miracles, just you, the road and the determination not to die in the middle of the road and that night. I survived not because I was strong but because I was stubborn. The next morning, when the first rays of sunlight broke through the trees, I trudged to the finish line. There was no one to greet me, no organizers, no coaches handing out scarves or hugs. I just stood there, my knees covered in mud, my chest heaving and my eyes dry. I didn't laugh, I didn't cry, I just standing like a warrior who has just survived an unknown battle. Someone once asked me approaching, "Who are you running to prove to?" I replied, to myself, to the 15-year-old me who wanted to die in the bathroom because my life was useless. For me, 20 years old, standing in front of the mirror, weighing nearly 140 kilograms and not daring to look myself in the eye. I'm not running for the prize. I don't run for recognition. I run to prove that I am no longer a product of my circumstances. I am a product of my choices. Every time I push past a seemingly impossible limit, I not only win for my current self, but also atone for all the times I gave up in the past. I can't turn back time. But I can live in the present strong enough to never repeat the same mistakes. After that ordeal, I returned to my anti-aircraft apartment. No pine tree, no fruit, no one waiting. I took off my shoes, ripped off my torn socks and looked at my bruised feet. But deep inside me is a feeling that money can't buy. It feels like being honest with yourself and with me. It is the most precious Christmas gift. Christmas used to be a season of illusion. Now it is the season of testing. Testing to see if I can keep my old promise. Never compromise yourself. And each winter that passed, I kept my word. If you are reading this, maybe you've never run 100 miles in the cold. You may not have been hungry enough to eat leftover breadcrumbs, but I know one thing for sure, you may have felt invisible, thought of yourself as an outsider, wished someone would see you, believe you, pull you out of the darkness. I won't tell you that the world will change, that someone will come. I can only say one thing, you don't need them. Everything you need, the tenacity, the endurance, the indomitable fire is sleeping inside you, but it will not awaken on its own. You must awaken it with your own feet, with your own voice, with your own determination not to surrender. That Christmas Eve, I didn't receive a fruit, but I realized one thing, no one in this world is given willpower. Willpower is something you have to dig up from deep within yourself. You don't find it in advice, in podcasts, in books. You only find it when you are alone, when you are about to fall and you still take one more step. It is the greatest gift and no one can take it away from you unless you let it go. At an age when many people start to feel stable, have a house, a family, and a steady job, I started to break down all structures to rush into something strange. My own mind laboratory. No test tubes, no whiteboards, just one principle. Put yourself in extreme situations to see how far your mind can stretch. I call it mental lab. The only place where you can test human limits in real conditions. No simulation, no safety net. This idea started one summer day when I had just finished Br. 135-mile race through Death Valley. They call it the toughest race on the planet. But to me, it was just a midterm exam. Because I know that after all the glory, what I need is not a medal, but a new battle. I started setting myself weird tasks, like running 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours or doing 1,000 push-ups while my knee was bleeding from an unhealed tear. I write down everything, feelings, body reactions, heartbeat, even random thoughts. I don't do it for the love of statistics. I did it because I wanted to understand how the mind works when pushed to the edge of despair. You would be surprised to know that humans can endure much more than they think. But no one would know that unless they put themselves in the work. In one experiment, I locked myself in a completely dark room for 24 hours. No phone, no books, no music, just me and the voices in my head. What I realized is that most of us don't know how to be alone. We are afraid of silence, afraid of looking directly into the chaotic nature of our minds, and we distract ourselves with everything. Netflix, social media, noise cancelling. But in that dark room, nothing could save me from myself. At first I found myself thinking about bills, about a sore knee, about a negative comment online. Then every little thought disappeared, leaving only one thing: who am I and where am I going? No more masks to wear, no more roles to play. I had to look at my naked ego, and it was not pleasant. Many people think that Go is innately strong. No, I am a product of deliberate mental practice. I built an iron cage around my will day by day, week by week, year by year by pushing myself into situations that ordinary people avoid. Imagine you wake up at 2 a.m. in winter. Your limbs are numb and you know you have to run 20 miles before work. Then your mind will scream, "You're crazy." And yes, I am crazy. But in that madness, I found order. Mental Lab is not a place to show off, it is a place to peel back the layers of the ego, to find the steel core inside. Every time I think I've reached my limit, I step back, observe, analyze, and try a different approach. I don't need anyone to force me. I am my own scientist and guinea pig. It has to be self-torture, it has to be proactive facing. Because I believe if you can't master your mind, you can't master anything. During my self-experimentation, I realized the brutal truth that pain never goes away. It just changes shape. If you don't actively step into pain with purpose, you will be dragged into meaningless pain. Pain from unemployment, from regret, from feeling useless. But if you choose to hurt in a controlled way, like running 40 miles in the cold or being still in the dark, you are turning pain into a tool, not a burden. I spent hundreds of hours in that lab, both literally and figuratively. I learned that the mind is the only muscle no one teaches you to train. You can learn how to lift weights, run fast, breathe properly. But no one teaches you how to be silent when the world inside is in chaos. No one teaches you how to handle feeling misunderstood, ignored, and pushed aside. I had to learn it step by step. One time I set up a new experiment. Running for 12 hours non-stop on an old treadmill in the garage, no scenery, no wind, nothing but the noise of the machine and a white wall. Why? Because I wanted to see how the mind would react when there were no rewards, no beautiful scenery, no cheerleaders, no variety to distract, just monotony and will. Around the 5th hour, I started to see hallucinatory images. A phenomenon that happens when the body is tired but the brain is still forced to work. Part of me wants to stop. But the other part, the part one have honed through each whispering battle. This is when we learn the most. That was the moment I understood why most people never reach their true potential. It's not because they're lazy, it's because they don't know how to stand the monotony. They need to constantly feel excited, feel inspired. But actually power is not born of inspiration, it is born of repetition. Hours where no one is watching, no one is cheering, no background music and no hashtags. You can do dim sum 3 times a week and find yourself getting stronger. But you will not change your nature until you push yourself into hours of no praise, no light, no medals. Just you and the mirror in your mind. A sports psychology coach says, "Visualize winning with me." That makes no sense. I don't imagine the outcome. I imagine the pain. I imagine myself injured, bleeding, left behind, and still crawling. I don't need to dream about winning. I need to know I can survive failure. I once ran in hail for almost 3 hours. My feet were blistered, my shirt was soaked with cold, and my eyelids were droopy from lack of sleep. I know I can go home, take a hot bath, have a bowl of soup, and sleep in a warm bed. But I chose not to because I knew if I went back today, next time I would come back even earlier. And from there the habit of giving up will take root easily. The mind lab is nowhere. It requires no equipment, no experts. It's in you. Ready to go at any time. You are brave enough to ask questions. What happens if I don't stop? You have an unexplored land in your mind, a place where everything you thought was limited is just a shadow of your laziness to face it. And if you have the courage to step into it, even just one step, you will never be the same person again. No one will come to save you, no shortcuts, no quick success secrets, just you and the pain. And if you dare to step in, you will step out with a strength you never knew you had. I used to think that once I had built up the will to get through hells like Hellwick, Runby Waters, or survive super training, I had peaked. But that is a dangerous illusion because the truth is there are no peaks, only spirals, and without constant rebirth, you will be swallowed up by your own past. That's what happened to me. I was at my peak that year. Fame goes up like a kite. The media began to pick up. Social media started tagging me with inspirational quotes. I became a symbol of a man who never gave up. Superhuman with world records in push-ups, ultramarathons, and will of steel. But in silence, I began to rot. I started reducing my training volume. I sleep later, I eat looser. I started rewarding myself for every small victory with a new car, some expensive shoes, and lavish meals. I told myself, you deserve it. That is the most dangerous word in my dictionary. Worthy. It's the reason I'm lazy, the reason I make excuses, the reason I look in the mirror and no longer see that cold gaze from back then. The eyes of a warrior who walked out of hell and swore never to return. I transformed into a shiny version of myself, clean, bright, flattering but anti-wide. Then one day, I heard the doctor say, his heart had a problem, the heart valve was leaking, blood was refluxing. If this intensity continues, he could collapse at any moment. I smiled, not because I was relieved, but because I knew I had gotten myself here. Me and no one else. That's when I understood it was time to kill the old version and be reborn. He who is not interested in fame, is not led by admiration, is not lulled to sleep by success. One lives by a principle of either evolution or extinction. I started small. Every morning I reach for my old scissors and trim my toenails because I know I'm going to have to run. I set my alarm again for 4 a.m. Without setting the alarm, I put on my worn-out shirt and went out before dawn. Every first step is a reminder. You are nobody anymore. Until you prove yourself again, repeat the old challenges, run in the blizzard. Swimming in a cold lake, climbing a mountain alone, no video recording, no one talking, just me and the shadow of myself yesterday. Nothing sobers you up more than burning your own image. During that rebirth, I discovered a harsh truth. There is nothing harder than destroying the very things that once brought you success, the very memories of glory, the old glories, the inspirational quotes that once made me invincible. Now it's become a trap, a sweet trap, lined with silk and filled with applause. I must kill the David Goggins that people know. That's why I returned to the place that trained me the hardest. My mind locked itself in the old laboratory. No phone, internet, no email. I have only a whiteboard, a mirror, and a single question. What do you have to fear? I list everything. Fear of going back to being a coward, fear of injury that will, me. Fear of being turned away by the community I inspire when they know I'm not perfect. Fear of losing the halo. I stared at those words as if looking into a deep lake. Then I did the only thing that kept me me. I ran through it. I signed up for an ultramarathon that I knew I wasn't ready for. My fitness was not at its peak at that time. The team is still waiting for the valve surgery schedule. But I need a battle big enough to shatter the newly formed camouflage. Race day I get up at 3 a.m. The sky was pitch black. Not a sound. I looked in the mirror and for the first time in months I saw the wild man's eyes back, empty but alert. The race was just as I expected, painful, miserable, inhuman. By the 70th km, my legs started to tear and my knees felt like they were about to fall off. Others will withdraw. I don't. Not because I'm stubborn, but because I've been here before. Hundreds of times in mind. And I know this pain is an old friend. Do you know? Many people think of wildness as a violent thing. Wildness is the ability to be authentic, to not need approval, to dare to look in the mirror and say I'm not done yet. It's not in the roar but in the silence of those who stand up when no one is asked. I finished in silence. No audience. No media, no one taking selfies, just me and my new self being reborn. Again and again, from the very ruins of complacency, in your life you will be reborn many times. But you don't always dare kill the version that others love. You fear losing recognition, you fear being misunderstood. But if you keep living in that shell, you will fall into spiritual death. More painful than real death. Don't let fame. Good performance or image keeps you in a gilded cage. Remember, the savage does not live to be loved. They live to be real. And only in truth will you find freedom. Discipline is for the weak. People who don't have enough passion, don't have enough energy to live by inspiration. My youth hated discipline. I want freedom, to do what I want, sleep when I want, eat whatever I want, away from all the structures that force me to. Because discipline to me is the invisible shackles that adults use to turn people into machines. I was wrong, completely wrong. When I started my journey of rebuilding myself from a fat, lazy, messy person, I didn't start with motivation. I start with discipline, and discipline itself. The thing I once hated became my savior. I am not a genius, nor do I have any special abilities. I don't possess any dominant genes or superior intelligence. But I have one thing, the ability to stick to what I set out to do even when no one is watching and for no apparent reason. When you live with discipline long enough, it becomes a part of you. Not like a chain but like a backbone. It keeps you standing when everything else falls apart. When I do ultras, many people ask, what do you think about when you run hundreds of kilometers? I replied, I think about the next time, not the finish line, but the next time I have to wake up at 4 a.m. to run again. Because for me, the destination is never the end. It is just a milestone on a journey of continuous training. And that journey cannot exist without discipline. Many people want discipline like they want to lose weight or learn a foreign language, fast, easy, with clear results. But discipline is not like a course, it is like a religion. Every morning I wake up before the sun, not because I like it, but because I have vowed that I will never let myself go back. Many days I am tired, sore, bored. There are also times when I want to sleep in, want to eat cake, want to run away. But in my mind always appears an image of my old, fat, weak, runaway self, and I know that if I break the discipline today, I will invite it back. I am not perfect, but I am a disciple of discipline. For me, discipline is not just a tool, it is a way life. It is what I believe in more than emotions, more than motivation, more than goals. Because motivation will betray you, emotions will deceive you, goals can change. But if you live by discipline, you can overcome anything. I used to work the night shift to make a living and then jog at 2 a.m. I used to have appendicitis and still climb the stairs, I used to tear my foot and still run. Not because I was strong, but because I gave myself no other choice but to continue. People say listen to your body. I learned to command my body. Discipline is how I keep my direction when everything around me becomes chaotic. It is the compass in the storm, the rope that pulls me out of the abyss, the whisper of reason in the midst of emotional frenzy. Once I seriously injured my knee after an ultra race. The doctor advised me to rest for 3 months. Normal people would listen, but I was different. I listened and adjusted, without resting, but switched to training. Biceps, back, push-ups, planks, weight training, meditation. I tried everything to keep my discipline intact. I knew that if I sat still for a week, I would start to feel comfortable. And comfort is the slow death of a warrior. Imagine a fire. If you don't feed it every day, it will go out. And discipline is the fire. If you don't feed it, don't be surprised if one day you wake up and find yourself lost, weak, stagnant. The irony is that modern society glorifies results but underestimates process. People ask, how do you run 240 miles? I answer, I don't start with 240 miles. I started by getting up early when it was cold. And I keep doing it day after day, year after year. Discipline doesn't start when you achieve something. It starts when you're a nobody and still decide to live as if you deserve to be something great. Each of us has a weakling inside. A voice whispers. Why are you doing this? Who cares? It's okay to take a day off today. I don't deny that voice. I recognize it. I kick it to the floor and walk through it. I'm not extraordinary, but I have a rule: if I make a promise to myself, I keep it. Even if only I know it. When you live like that long enough, you start to respect yourself. Not in the empty narcissistic way, but with real respect. Because you know you're not running away, not in a messy space, not bending the rules to make things easier. True freedom doesn't come from doing everything you want, it comes from choosing the right thing to do and committing to it. In a world that's screaming get up, live by inspiration. I choose to quietly live by discipline because inspiration can get you started. But only discipline can keep you going. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. That Mike Ton quote is true not only in the boxing ring, it's true in life, it's true in racing. It's true on the battlefield and it's true in the quietest moments. When you're sitting alone thinking you have everything under control, suddenly a punch from life comes swooping down. I used to believe that with enough practice, enough preparation, enough discipline, I wouldn't be surprised that I would always be in control, that pain and failure would elude me. Once again, I was wrong. When life wants to punch you, it will. No warning, no signal, no need, it will come when you're unprepared. And the only thing that matters is not whether you get hit or not, but what you do after that punch. I call it art. The art of getting punched in the face. That year I was preparing for one of the most grueling challenges. The Ultraman competition was 3 days of back-to-back hells, a 10-kilometer swim, a 270 kilometers bike ride, and an ultramarathon run. I trained like crazy, scheduling sleep, eating, and recovery like clockwork. Everything was calculated. I went into the competition with a lot of confidence, not cockiness, but trust in my own system. The first day I swam well, and the bike ride was fine. The second day I started to feel pain in my lower back, a dull ache. But I kept going. I didn't think it was a big deal. In the afternoon, at the 180th kilometer, I heard a small crack like a string snapping, and my back was so stiff I couldn't move. I had to stop the car, stand on the side of the road, face pale, punching my ass down. Part of me wanted to call an ambulance, but the other part of me was saying, "You're not done yet." I tried to stretch my back, pressed the acupressure points, I twisted and climbed on the bike. Not as fast as before, but I still pedaled each turn like my muscles were being torn, each pain like an electric shock. But I knew that if I stopped today, I would lose more than the competition, I would lose myself. And that was what scared me more than any injury. The beauty of surprise punches is that they strip you naked. They don't ask what school you go to, what religion you follow, how many followers you have, they just ask, will you stand up? And that's the question you have to answer yourself in blood, in tears, in despair. On the morning of the third competition, I couldn't stand up. My back felt like it was bound with steel. Every movement was a sentence. The nurse came to my room and told me to withdraw. I smiled and told myself to give it 20 minutes. I dragged myself to the floor, lay on my back, and began a series of spinal adjustment exercises that I had learned from a physical therapist. Every small movement felt like my guts were being ripped out. But I didn't cry. I only thought of one thing. Right now, I was retraining my identity. I was on my feet. After 40 minutes I could stand up, after 90 minutes I was running slowly but surely. And I didn't stop until I reached the finish line. Not because I was indomitable or legendary, but because I had lived my whole life in the punches. I was no longer afraid of being hit. I learned to take it, shape it, use it as leverage. I remember once I was talking to a young soldier. He had just failed a special test. I asked, "Why did you quit?" He replied, "I wasn't prepared for that pain. I didn't think it would come so soon." I nodded and said, "That's why you need to be beaten, not to break but to learn how to endure." People say, avoid failure. I teach the opposite. Learn to fail without losing yourself. Every time I get knocked down, I keep a journal, not to complain, but to record my reactions. I dissect my emotions, analyze my mistakes, note how I reacted, and then I redesign the same situation so that the next time I encounter it, I won't be shocked. I don't dodge. I practice standing up after each blow. Because I understand, in life you will be hit many times and it won't always be fair. People will betray you, plans will fall apart, your body will rebel, and your mind will scream. Stop it. But if you learn the art of taking a punch with presence of mind and composure, no punch will be able to break you. Remember, a punch to the face is not the end. It is a sign that you are approaching the important place, where no one enters untested, where you either surrender or are reborn. I chose to be reborn again and again until being beaten became a part of the rhythm of life. And I hope you will too. You can't run forever from what you've been running from sooner or later. They'll catch up and then you'll have no choice. It's called reconning, the reckoning, the reckoning. The moment when every lie you tell yourself is exposed. I was a master of running. I hid my pain behind busyness, I hid my fear behind accomplishments. I wrapped myself in an image of near invincibility. I used it as a shield to avoid the fragments of the past that still reside somewhere in my chest. But you can't run forever because what you don't heal will find a way to come back. In the form of dreams, in the form of irrational rage. In the form of an emptiness that can't be filled with me. It happened after a conversation with my mother. She called me on a quiet evening just to check in. But when I heard her voice, I felt choked up. Not because she did anything wrong but because I hadn't called her in so long. I was too busy. Or rather, I was too afraid to face the guilt of forgetting. She didn't blame me, she just asked gently, "Are you okay?" And I gooned strong, go near ultramarathon, go near Nevis couldn't answer. I sat in silence, tears welling up. It was a blow no one saw, but it knocked me down. That's when I understood. I needed to settle with myself. I started going back to read the old diaries where I had written in despair, in loneliness. In my madness, I reread each distorted line. I was unworthy. I was useless. I was my father's shadow. I didn't read to torture myself. I read to see the big picture, to stop pretending I was okay. For a week, I turned off my phone, no internet, no work, no speaking invitations. I rented a cabin in the mountains and lived alone as a reverse retreat, not to find peace but to dig for really. I wrote, meditated, talked to myself, and little by little, the broken pieces were revealed. I found myself still angry with my father, still blaming my mother for not leaving him sooner, still resentful of my childhood, still hating the weak me from back then. I used to think I had overcome it, but no, I just hid it. The more successful I was, the better I was at hiding it, and that was what made me lost. I realized that I wanted to be truly free. I couldn't just be strong in body or will. I had to be strong in forgiveness. Not forgiveness to ease my heart, but forgiveness to reclaim control, the right not to be haunted by the past. I started writing letters to my father even though he was dead. A letter I never sent. In it, I told him about the pain, the hatred, but also about what I had learned. I didn't write with the hope that he would apologize. I wrote to free myself from the chain of emotional chemical reactions that had bound me for decades. I also wrote letters to my mother. This time, I sent them for real. I told her things I had never said. That I was grateful to her, that I felt I had been heartless, that I loved her. Even though I had not been able to say it in words for so many years. And then I wrote to myself, to the little boy inside me. I apologized for not listening for so long, for silencing him so that I could become strong. For considering emotions as weakness, and I promised that from now on I will not abandon him again. The liquidation does not happen once, it is a continuous process. A series of honest questions that you have to ask every day. What are you running from? Are you truly living? What in you is still untouched? Many people think that Go Near is a machine, without emotions, only knowing how to run and endure. But I am not a machine. I am a human being, a broken person, a person who has hated, blamed, despised himself. And because I dare to look back at those cracks, I live fully. Liquidation is not a punishment. It is an opportunity to restructure, to remove old layers of paint and rebuild from the foundation. Imagine you are a house. For years, you repainted the decorations, hung beautiful pictures on the walls, everyone complimented you. But if the foundation is rotten, it all falls apart. The liquidation is when you remove each picture, scrape off the paint, throw away all the furniture to look at that foundation. And if necessary, tear down the whole house and rebuild. I did, I still do. And I know if you have the courage to start, you can too. Don't be afraid of the truth, don't avoid emotions, don't pretend to be someone else. Let the liquidation begin, not to end you but to rebirth you. Many people live as if the game is over when the clock strikes 40. They start talking about the old days, about when I was young. As if the rest of their lives are just a quiet extra after the climax. Not me. For me, the game doesn't end when you get tired. It doesn't end when you're bored, it doesn't end when you're in pain. It only ends when the whistle blows, and that whistle, if you're still alive, hasn't been able to. This is what I learned in a chatlawn I had no intention of running. Until I heard about a man named Scott. He used to be a world-class athlete. But a car accident left him with multiple surgeries on his leg and shoulder. The doctor said, "You'll never run again." A few months later, I saw his name on the registration list. We were both in the front on the first day. I noticed how he ran unevenly, with a slight limp, his legs breaking apart with each step. But he didn't stop. And at times when I tried to slow down because of knee pain, I saw him just keep going, lips pressed together, eyes like studs. I remembered the times I'd collapsed not because of injury but because of boredom, because I'd given myself a break. That's when I asked myself, are you playing hard or are you living on a temporary contract? I used to be a person who had a habit of stopping. When I saw no one was looking, I practiced running. But when no one cheers, I slow down. I work out, but when I don't have a trainer, I cut down on my slippers. I said, I'm exhausted, but actually I'm shy. It's not a limit, it's a self-limitation. And every time, I hear the voice of my high school sports coach. The first teacher made me finish the exercise even though the clock was running out. You play until the bell rings, not sooner. That lesson stayed with me for life. I did not finish the race to win the prize. I complete to recall identity. I am a player to the end. And from then on I started applying this principle to everything. Not just running but work, relationships, discipline, learning, self-improvement. You want to write a book, write it all the way. You want to learn a new skill, how long will it take to master it? It's not just that you're bored, you're recovering from a fall. Keep going, even when there's no hope. Sometimes you don't realize you're giving up, you just think it's a little break, but that little break is repeated enough times, it becomes a rut. And at some point, you lose the ability to go all the way. I did a test with myself once. Every time I want to stop, whether it's while exercising, writing, studying, or even in an uncomfortable conversation with someone, I continue for 5 more minutes, just 5 minutes, and I realize that it's those minutes when I'm about to give up that are where my true nature is revealed. Those 5 minutes are where you learn to suffer without excuses, where you no longer need background music, no longer expect rewards. No one is watching, no one is counting for you. It is the sacred land of the committed, the land of warriors. And I believe anyone can get to that land if they dare to keep going after they want to stop. One of the things I often remind myself is that happy endings don't come from luck. It comes from not leaving the field before the game is over. Sounds simple, but is not easy to do. Because most of the time, that battle is with yourself. You have to fight the voice, who cares? Fighting with feelings is enough. Fight every reasonable excuse to stop. Because reasons always make sense when you're tired. I used to have a winter run. Temperature -10 degrees Celsius, wind blows in face like knife. Halfway through, hail started to fall painfully. I stopped under the porch of a house. People in the house looked out, their eyes filled with both pity and surprise. I stood there with 2 choices, go back or continue. I remember the principle of the whistle not yet blown, and I continue running, not fast, not neat, not beautiful, but step by step. Every breath is an affirmation. I'm still here. After I got home, I didn't feel heroic. I don't post, I don't celebrate. I just look in the mirror and know that I played until the whistle blew today, and that's enough for me to keep me intact. Remember, you don't have to be the best. But if you are the last man to leave the field, the one still playing when everyone else has given up, then you are a legend in your own right. Live like that until the whistle blows. At a certain point, you have to ask yourself if you have really exhausted your soul. Not physically draining. I have done it hundreds of times, also not just the will, because I believe that the will can reincarnate but the soul. The core part inside you that no one else can touch, where all your fears, beliefs, reasons for living, identity, and pain are held. That's where I decided to go all the way. I'm not talking about the pain in your muscles after a 100-mile race. I'm talking about the pain of truth. When you realize you're still living half-baked versions of yourself, still avoiding the dark corners of yourself. Reaching the soul, draining the soul is a journey I embark on without fanfare, without drums, without anyone forcing me, without anyone knowing. But I know if I don't do this, I will die without having lived. I start by turning back to myself. Not go near the present but go near 10 years. The boy was beaten and mocked. Living in the shadow of an abusive father and the cries of a helpless mother. I closed my eyes, put myself in that body and asked, have you forgiven? The answer is no. I thought I forgave by overcoming, by succeeding, by inspiring millions. But that's not forgiveness, that's replacement. I replace pain with victory, replace memory with record, replace weakness with indomitable image. But the soul does not operate by logic, it does not measure by performance. It measures how far you have come to the core of your being. And dared to stay there for how long, so I started squeezing little by little. Like a farmer milking, no rush, no hurry. Every morning I write a question on a piece of paper. What is it in you that you have never said? Who do you hate? Where are you pretending? What are you most afraid of if other people knew? The answers that made me use myself were not because they were terrible, but because they were true. I'm afraid of being forgotten, afraid that I'm not really strong, afraid that one day I'll wake up and find that I'm just a product of marketing. Afraid that no one understands that behind that stubborn appearance is a soul that is still trembling. And I keep squeezing. I started to delete the things I used to cling to, the grueling workout schedules to fill the void, the inspirational videos, the praise. I spend more time in silence. Run without a clock, train without music. Sit alone without holding the phone. I want to know who I am when everything on the outside is taken away. One time I sat in front of the mirror, not to check my hair or fix anything, just to look, no blinking, no analyzing, just looking. And after a few minutes, I could no longer see my face. I see what lies beneath the skin, the loneliness, the resentment, the longing for recognition. But at that moment I saw that courage is not the courage to rush into battle but the courage of someone who dares not to hide from himself. When you drain your soul, you will find that what remains is not for dust but for gold. You will see what cannot be taken away. Honor. You will find a place where you don't need others to understand you because you understand yourself. You will find a quietness that comes not from yoga or meditation but from having nothing left to hide. I know many people reading this will feel confused. They want a beautiful ending, a strong motivational message. But I don't have that. I only have the truth. You will never be completely done. There will always be more to face, more to discover, more layers to peel. And that's not a burden, it's a privilege. Because it means you are alive. Drain your soul not to become exhausted but to live lighter, more truly. No veneer, no title, no proof. I didn't write this book for you to become me. I write to help you become the untapped version of yourself. If there is anything I leave behind, it is not a formula but a question: have you really lived your life to the fullest? And if the answer is no, that's good because the game isn't over yet, the whistle hasn't blown yet, and your soul is still there. Waiting for you to dare to squeeze. If you made it all the way to the last page of Never Finished, I want to give you a quiet but heartfelt thank you. Because you're not just listening to a story, you've stepped into it, you've touched every slice of weariness and doubt. Hurt and can see themselves in it. This book is not meant to convince your mind, It is a cold and naked dissection of the limits that humans impose on themselves. If there's one thing I hope you leave with after you close this final chapter, it's one question you ask yourself. What am I avoiding? I don't believe in polite nods. But if anything in this book makes you want to talk back, to argue, to share, don't keep it to yourself. Leave a mark, a review, a comment, even a rejection. Any feedback is a vivid demonstration that we are actually reading and not just skimming. And if you've ever come across a book that left you speechless for a long time or on the contrary made you want to scream something to the world, please recommend it. I don't go looking for easy books. I look for things that linger in the reader's mind long after the last page has been turned. We live in an age where reading can become an anti-distraction behavior. If you still choose to listen, still choose to think, still choose to live deeply, then we are on the same side. See you in the next book.